In the meantime, since I do have some, downtime before the engine gets done, hopefully this week, I'm hoping like maybe tomorrow, either later today being Thursday or tomorrow being Friday, engine will be done, just that way I can get it Cerakoted soon, because I do have some C-Series Cerakote to make it just like a perfect glossy black. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get this valve cover knocked out. I do have it soaking in some super clean right now on the underside, so I can get all of the sand out, and I'm going to break out my pressure washer, which doesn't really do pressure anymore, but it's fine. And I'm going to try and wash out all the sand like now. And once I do that, then it's on to powder coating. So this video will be about powder coating my valve cover after all the fuel stuff gets kind of sorted out. Alright, valve cover's all cleaned up, on to the next step. This is going to be one of the more involved coating jobs I personally do. Probably something you would do too if you're planning on doing powder coating. I'll kind of show you step by step how to go about it. So let's get started. First of all, the theme color for this car is going to be Illusion Cherry. I've used it before on another project involving my Tacoma. Absolutely love the color. In order to get the color to come through, you're gonna need clear vision. This one is what makes this actually have color. Otherwise, this kind of looks like this, but just like bright silver with an red undertone. This brings out the actual cherry color, which is really, really cool. And you'll see the transformation when we go to do it. This guy is going to be just for the lettering. So I'll show you how to do that. And then this, in this bag, this guy is an epoxy primer. The reason for using the primer, you do not need to do this. However, for something like this color is very prone to substrate changes, and I will tell you what I mean by that in just a moment. But this will ensure that no matter what I put this color on, including the brakes, a couple of the little bits, and the valve cover especially, it is all gonna match. So there's not gonna be like one that's darker or one that's lighter or anything like that. And then we're gonna use some tape here. This is polymer tape specifically made for powder coating. And then lastly are just some plugs here. Use these for your bolt holes to make sure you don't accidentally ruin anything, crack a valve cover, break a bolt. None of that is fun, but these guys will help with that. And these are actually really nice. They came in a little case. Really like that. Let's talk powder dynamics. So these are three very different colors. This is Prismatic Universe. This is a single stage powder that no matter what base coat you have on here, it's always going to look the same. This is actually Illusion Cherry. This one looks different on this versus if you were to coat like this. Like, obviously this is wood, but if you were to coat something with a very light base versus this that used a dark connecting rod, the colors will actually be different. And then this, on an extreme level, is HD Teal, and this is the worst color I've ever sprayed just because it's so hard to work with. You can see on here there's some really, really light spots here, and then other ones where like the entire bottom side is dark, and that's because all the powder pools on this one. But also you can see this with the substrate color. This is really what it's supposed to kind of look like here. Actually, it's not even that. This is kind of what the color is supposed to look like here, but you can see over through here, Faraday effect does play a role in this, but it's also just an issue of how even the coating is, which is why I don't like this one. If you look down here, see how this is a lighter surface and the color is lighter versus over here where the color is darker? This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying I want a very consistent base. So this is probably going to be a little bit closer to what the color is going to look like versus if I did it on like a bright background where it come out closer to that. And if I did it on a super dark background where it could honestly come out even darker than this. That's kind of a little explanation on why I want a consistent base, and that's why I'm using this primer. This has been an absolute headache, but I finally got it. I ended up just stuffing the valve cover with tin foil all throughout this side here, and then just kind of underneath here. So I'm just not going to spray right into it, and I'll show you what I did with these plugs. I just kind of toss these little plugs in here, just kind of loose. All you're trying to do is just keep the powder out of there. It's not a big thing. These guys I'm not worried about, and this guy I'm not worried about because we're not going to be doing anything with those. And these guys, I just did a through plug on here because by the time it gets to the end here with that powder, you'll just knock it out. It won't be a big thing, or you can even run a tap through there because at least the beginning threads are good. These I might tap later if I really want to, but not really too worried about it right now. One thing to keep in mind with powder coat, if you're going to be doing this, proximity between oven and part and where you're spraying it is key. If you have it too far, walking from like over here all the way over here, you'll pick up any contaminant in between there and here, and it always lands on your part, and it's always going to be in the most obvious spot on here, at least obvious to you. I even had parts that were next to it when I had my old spray booth set up. I sprayed it ahead of time. I had another part baking, took it out, put it in there, and yeah, every single piece of like hair and whatnot that could have got onto the part that I had was on there just from sitting. So spray it when you're ready, blow it off beforehand. I'm gonna blow this thing off in just a second, and then we're gonna get this thing primered. And yeah, just don't let it sit for too long before you're ready to spray it, and do everything you can to make sure that your distance between spray to oven is as short as possible. Like this You can see my feet here. It's basically one step either way. This gives me enough room to work, but not enough room to pick up a bunch of stuff from point A to point B. Alright, so normally I'd wear a respirator for this, but I want to make sure my audio is very, very clear. This is going to be me talking you through how I spray this out. This has the epoxy primer in it. Alright, so I just blew this thing off a second ago, which I had on video. Toss all the plugs in. I just put this ground right here. Try to put it somewhere you don't really care about, even though about 99.9% of the time it won't matter, because once you get done spraying all of this, you're going to take this off, and then you're just going to spray here. There will be enough charge left into the part that you're spraying that this won't make a difference if it's here or not. Anyway, here's a setting on the back of the gun here. This is how much charge you're putting into it. So this is a lot of charge, basically meaning if I throw powder from over here, it will stick to this. Then over here is quite a small amount. So I like to kind of start somewhere around here, about the 20-25% mark. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start kind of coating. You see quite a bit coming out. We're just gonna reduce this down a good bit. I want to give this thing as much of an even coating as I can get. This valley right here is going to be very hard to do, and then you got to make sure you get down in here. A lot of the times with an actual color, I will start down here. For just an epoxy primer, I'm not really as worried, but just know with the actual color, you're going to want to start in some of the hard spots first. These spots over here for the cams and the timing cover is also a very awkward area. For things like this guy, make sure you get the underside just because it's easy to forget it, and then, you know, you have a bare spot, and that's never fun. So this guy, for the most part, should be pretty good. Again, I'm not too concerned about it since it is just a primer. Then I want to kind of check in here and make sure this looks like it's covered, which it kind of does. Now we're going to remove the ground, like so. That'll take care of those little hook marks. So we're just going to set this gun down here. It's nicer if you have a hook. I just don't anymore. And then we are going to take this and put it right in the oven. Part is now in the oven, as you can see. We're going to close her up. We got 20 minutes here. We're going to wait until this part hits 320 degrees itself, not just the oven. Cerakote, it's just the oven. Powder coat, it has to be part metal temperature. And then we're going to check it every so often using this guy here. Kind of shoot anywhere, and you can see that one is 79 degrees on the concrete. So yeah, once that hits 320 degrees, timer starts. It's going to be 15 minutes at 320 degrees. In the meantime, it is going to be time to do the prep for the next color, which is going to mean taking this guy out of here, completely spraying the gun out, getting it all cleared, cleaned, everything else. I'll show you how to do that as well. And then we're going to be loading up the next color, which I think the next one is going to be polished aluminum for the lettering. Okay, now I'm cleaning out the gun. Have the cup, very dirty, gun, also very dirty, and air hose running about 80 psi. Spraying, you run about 20 to 30, typically kind of closer to 30 just because I like to have a good burst of powder when I want it, and then you can also adjust it down on the gun. But just don't run it probably over like 35, 40. For the cup, super easy. Take it. Much better. Gun, even easier, kind of. I just usually throw the cup back on until I'm ready to throw powder in it again. Alright, it's been a little bit. This should be about done. Check it. So you can see it's about 300. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to keep opening this thing up and losing heat, so we're just going to go on here. We're going to do timer. I'm going to give it 2 extra minutes just so I can finish getting up to temperature. And yeah, just give it the 15 minutes after that. This thing should be fine. Again, just a base coat, not really that concerned about it. Clear coat, you want to be pretty exact because you actually can burn powder. Check out how good this came out. There's a few light spots here and there, but again, not worried about it. It is just a base coat. This coat is just going to be right here on the lettering just for the Myvec turbo part. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to block this off with like paper towels or something. and just try and get this as centralized as I can. And then I actually have a vacuum with a oddball attachment I will show you that I just made about 10 minutes ago. So what we're going to do is I just need this to cool down a little bit more. It's still a little bit uncomfortable to touch, so we're not going to do that yet. Once this becomes cool enough so I don't accidentally hot flock it, that's when we're going to spray on the polished aluminum. Okay, so after I got all this done, I got the majority of the powder off of here that is the polished aluminum. Just it's kind of, you know, everything that was basically filled in around this. And then I used a combination between my little vacuum setup with the pen and also just using I used a paper towel with some distilled water, and then I just wet the paper towel, use my finger, wipe it away, wipe off my finger, and then just kind of do that a few times. I did have a little bit extra over here, not a big thing. So this next step, it's already loaded up in the gun right now, is going to be Illusion Cherry. So what I'm going to do is we're going to spray this thing out fully. I'm going to take my finger and do the same thing that I just did before and kind of wipe away on all of this where it says MyVec Turbo. I'm going to go to clear it, just going to clear the whole thing. We're not going to worry about trying to do this because since this powder is reactive to having the clear coat on it, I don't want to wipe this off and then have like an edge or something where it just weird looking because the powder is wiped away where it needed to be cleared. So yeah, the next thing we're going to do is just wait for this thing to cool off, which is, it's at about 300 degrees right now, so it's going to be a minute still. But once this cools off enough, then we will go ahead and knock out the actual color. All right, it is go time on this cover. It is cooled down enough. It is currently at one of these thick parts, sitting at about 126, about 126 or so across the board. So I think it is good enough to go ahead and coat it. Okay, so now is when flashlight is very handy to use for this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over this and see if I can find any spots that are still gray. If you pull away from this thing, go ahead and take off the ground, spray on the ground, and then look at this thing. You can kind of see where you've missed some spots, and then also if you have any spots where Faraday effect is kind of, you know, ruining your coating, that's actually the best time to hit it, is if there's no charge on there. You can generally fill them in a lot easier. Like this guy here, I filled that in a lot of this when I had no charge on this thing, and it actually worked really well. So all the bits filled in there, and then when I did get charged, it didn't really do anything to it. So let's kind of go over it and take a look. Okay, so I see two light spots. There's one over here and one right here, both of them on the intake cam for some reason. Okay, so that second pass made it look perfect. Now for the tricky part, which is going to be this lettering, and I will show you the best way to do that. I'm going to start off with my vacuum attachment, and I'm just going to take all the top of the letters off, just so that way it gets the majority of the powder off, so I don't have any like thick, weird waves in this. Okay, so now that the majority of this powder is off of here, I'm going to take my finger, put in some distilled water, kind of go about it like so. So this is in the oven. You can see it still looks all powdery, but give it just a couple minutes. Look at that. So you might be thinking this thing's coming out pretty good so far, and I will agree, this thing's looking awesome. However, trust the process, this thing is almost ready to go. Next step, once this guy is cooled off a little bit more, it's about 175 degrees in the valley here. I want to get this down to about 135-ish. Once it hits 135, we're laying down clear coat. This color is going to completely transform. If you've never seen one of these illusion colors before, this is insane. So yeah, once this thing's ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and do that. I might actually go ahead and do what I just did with the lettering on here and just kind of like take off the top edge again. Just that way this looks a little bit more metallic and the sides will kind of have a little bit more of the clear coat depth. A little bit more time here. Let it just kind of cool off a little bit more, and then we're gonna make things happen. Alright, same concept as before. Handy little stream light. Go over this thing, check for any light spots. It is surprisingly hard to see them when you're not using a light, even if it is a drastically different color like this. This looks white, yes. However, this is a clear coat, and you will see soon. But let's check for light spots. Perfect. Now, for this little bit here, same exact concept as before, just kind of going through really light. Sometimes this powder can kind of get a weird effect here. I noticed recently, because it's actually my first time doing this, but if you touch it and it's still charged from not having the ground on here, and even sometimes from having the ground on here, it'll create a little ripple effect, which should happen here on the M. It looks like the M's gonna be okay. Now it's time to throw this guy back in the oven for the last time and see how she comes out. Alright, the cover's out, and it's by far my favorite cover I've ever done. I mean, I've done a lot of powder coat work. I've probably used about 50, 60 different colors, maybe more, all just different things. This is my favorite, by far. Look at how this came out. It is so perfect, so gorgeous. This is by far the best color I could have picked for this. I am so glad I went with it. It was a tough choice between this and Illusion Purple, but I did Illusion Purple on my Speed 3. I'm glad I went with Illusion Cherry for this, because it's also what I used on my Tacoma the last time. Such a good color, as you can tell. But I'm gonna wrap it up here. I might just do like a little bit of B-roll of the valve cover, probably just outside, just because it's gonna look so good under the sunlight. Well, a little bit of sunlight I have left now, because this took me literally all day to do because of all the prep work and everything. But I appreciate you watching. I'm hoping the next video is probably going to be me installing the seats and getting all the fuel stuff sorted out. But I think the video after that is going to be hopefully getting the engine assembled. I'm really hoping I can get my block back soon. But again, appreciate you watching. There's more to come.